Most eyes and attention this week were on the missile that landed in Poland just over the border from Ukraine on Tuesday. But the United States does not believe that Russia fired that missile. What we all should have been paying attention to was the devastating aerial bombardment of Ukraine that Moscow delivered this week. The British Ministry of Defense said Tuesday saw likely the largest number of strikes that Russia has conducted in a single day since the first week of the invasion. One of the main targets has been energy infrastructure, plunging swaths of Ukraine into darkness. The capital, Kyiv, experienced both blackouts and communication disruptions. All this as winter cold and snow have arrived. Let me bring in the panel to talk about Ukraine, and we will later get to China. I have two terrific guests joining me in studio, Richard Haass and Tim Naftali. Richard is, of course, the president of the Council on Foreign Relations, and Tim is a CNN presidential historian and teaches history at NYU. So that bombardment, this is part of the new general who's been put in place in Russia. This is the guy who oversaw the Syrian campaign. This is exactly what he did in Syria. It is brutal. I mean, and they're going for energy infrastructure. They're basically plunging the civilian population into cold and misery, right? Can Ukraine just keep taking these body blows?
Look, you're exactly right. This is the Aleppoization of the Ukraine war. Russia can't compete, if you will, on the traditional battlefield. So they're saying, this is our battlefield. We are going to so increase the misery that we are going to try to get you to shout uncle and to come to the negotiating table and give us enough so we can claim this was all worth it. History suggests not. You know the history of mass bombing during World War II. It tends to stiffen the spine of civilian populations, but we'll see. It's part of Putin's larger strategy to play for time. He's hoping the new House of Representatives here might give him a break. He's hoping Europeans get cold this winter. Maybe they'll lose some of their spirit of backing Ukraine. And obviously, he wants to break the back of the Ukrainian people. I don't think it will work, but that right now is his strategy.
Do you agree with that?
Oh, it's absolutely his strategy. He is looking for weakness. He is looking for a lack of resolve on the part of Europeans and the United States. And like all autocrats, he underestimates democracies. There's one thing you can count on from an autocrat. They think we are weak, and they always get surprised when we don't back down. And so what we have to do is project to them a sense of unity and resolve.
Which we have so far been able to do, right?
Yeah, we have actually remarkably so. Europeans and the United States have continued to tell Putin and to send signals to Putin that we mean it when we want to defend Ukrainian sovereignty.
But it does highlight Ukraine is going to be, devastated. I don't know whether you could even come up with a figure that would describe what the rebuilding of Ukraine is going to cost at this stage.
No, it's incalculable. Look, it's pulverization. And this is a modern society. You and I have both spent time there even recently. And you go down to downtown Kyiv, and you could have been in any city in any modern city in contemporary Europe. The cost of this, the human cost, order what? A quarter of the population or more has been displaced. The physical cost now. I spoke to a friend the other day in Kyiv. I think she's on the 23rd floor of her building. The only way to get to her apartment is to walk up and down the stairs. Imagine what this is like for the elderly and for young children. So this is a conscious strategy. It is brutal. These are war crimes on an hourly basis. That is what we are seeing. And the cost of rebuilding Ukraine, the years it will take, the dollars it will take, will be enormous.
Tim, you had a really fascinating piece in Foreign Affairs in which you pointed out that Putin, in a conference with a bunch of Russian journalists, in answer to one of his favorite foreign policy experts, Lukyanov, who's been on the show, the guy asked him about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And what did he say?
Lukyanov asked Putin, are you going to be like Khrushchev, accepting a retreat? And Putin...
Actually, it was even, he said, are you going to be like Khrushchev? And Khrushchev said, and Putin says, you mean accept a retreat? No. He characterized what Khrushchev did as a retreat.
And what's so important, I think, is that there is a sense among American and some European elites that the Cuban Missile Crisis ended peacefully because of statesmanship on both sides. There is no doubt that statesmanship mattered, but the initial move towards an off-ramp was from the Soviet side. The Russians were scared. And the reason they were scared was that they were looking for some lack of resolve on the part of John F. Kennedy, and they didn't see it. And when John F. Kennedy imposed a blockade and stuck by it, Khrushchev realized, I don't want war. I've got to find an off-ramp. So what I was trying to share was, don't look to history to give you a reason to go to Putin and give him an off-ramp. If anything, it's the opposite. Don't give Putin a sense that you want to end this, because he's looking for that. He's desperate for straws. Force him to want an off-ramp, the way that John F. Kennedy forced Khrushchev to seek an off-ramp from the Cuban Missile Crisis.
I don't know if Tim would agree, but I would actually say Khrushchev probably acted under slightly greater constraint than Putin is now. There was a degree of institutions in the Soviet Union. It was sclerotic. You had a degree of collective leadership. We have a personalization and a deinstitutionalization of that country, which makes it frightening that one man has so much power.
But do you agree with Tim, which I think is right, which is we shouldn't be searching for off-ramps for Putin. We should be maintaining pressure. Let him search for the off-ramps.
Absolutely. And the situation is as far from being ripe for diplomacy. Neither side right now is prepared to accept half a loaf. What we want to do is create the conditions for diplomacy rather than go directly into diplomacy.
All right.